Have you ever stopped to think about where everything comes from? The common story is that it all started from, well, nothing. But what if that whole idea is just wrong? Today, we're diving into a philosophical text that flips that entire concept on its head. And where does this huge, world-changing idea come from? Well, it all kicks off with just one really startling sentence.
Whoa. Think about that. Not just I disagree with this, but I hated these 5 words. That's some pretty strong language, right? And that powerful feeling, that rejection, is actually the key that unlocks this whole new way of thinking. So let's figure out what's going on here.
So, you might be wondering, what could possibly be so wrong with saying everything started from nothing? What's the problem? Well, to get to the bottom of it, we need to look at how people have traditionally read this ancient Korean text, the Cheonbugyong, because the author we're looking at is basically saying, you've been reading it wrong all along. And you won't believe what this entire philosophical revolution hinges on. It's a comma. Seriously, a tiny, almost invisible change in punctuation that completely rewrites the story of the universe. Okay, so this is where it all happens. On one side, you have the traditional reading, ilsi musi. That's always been understood to mean one begins from nothingness. Pretty standard, right? But now, look at the other side. The author just pops a comma in there. It becomes ilsi musi. And just like that, the meaning completely changes. Now it reads, being begins and then nothingness begins. That one little comma just flipped the entire origin story of the universe. It's a total game changer. Okay, so why do this? Why make this radical change? Well, the argument behind it is actually incredibly simple and logical. The author basically says that the old way of thinking, it just doesn't add up.
And here's why. Just think about it for a second. How can something, anything, come from a state of absolute, total non-existence? It's a paradox, right? It's a logical contradiction at its core. And that very question is what fuels this whole new philosophy.
Here's a really simple way to think about it. Take darkness. What is darkness, really? It's not its own thing. It's just the absence of light. You can't even understand the concept of darkness unless you first have the concept of light. Light has to come first. It's the same exact logic with, say, an apple. If I say, there's no apple here, what's the first thing you do? You picture an apple. You have to have the idea of the being of an apple before you can understand the not being of an apple. And that's the big takeaway. Nothingness isn't some original primary state. It's a secondary idea that totally depends on being to even make sense. And this is it. This is the central idea that changes everything. Being comes first. Full stop. It is the absolute, the foundation, the starting point of it all. Nothingness is just its shadow. You can't have a shadow without a light source. And in this view, being is the light, and nothingness is just the shadow it casts. All right, I know what you might be thinking. This is some pretty high-level abstract stuff about the cosmos. And you're right. But this debate has really profound, deeply personal consequences for every single one of us. This is where it stops being about the universe out there and starts being about us, right here. Let's break this down. If the universe comes from nothingness, that's a story of deficiency. It means we start from a lack. And in that world, our dignity, our worth isn't a given. It's something we have to earn or get from other people, from society. But if we start from a universe of fullness, from being, then our dignity is absolute. It's built in. It's something we have from the very beginning, just by existing. So think about what this really means for you. Your value isn't something that's handed to you by your job or by your friends or by how many likes you get online. It's not conditional. In this view, it is absolute, just because you exist. You are a part of that original being. And that is an incredibly powerful idea. Okay, so if we accept that we exist in this universe that starts from being, from fullness, the next question is, how does it all work? How does this being operate? Well, the author doesn't just stop at the origin story. They propose a whole dynamic model for how the universe functions. And that model is called Jin. It's a 4-stage dynamic process. You can think of it like the operating system or the engine of the universe. The key here is that the cosmos isn't some static thing that was just created and left alone. It's a living, breathing system that's constantly evolving. So let's walk through it. Stage 1 is Gin. That's the absolute being we've been talking about, the foundation of everything. Then comes stage 2, yen. This is where being basically recognizes itself, affirms its own existence. It's like it's saying, yep, I am here. The analogy used is like light recognizing its own wave-like properties, so it's a universe that's, in a way, self-aware. After that self-awareness, we get hua. This is the creative spark, the stage of transformation where the universe is actively making new things. And finally, there's jin. This is the forward momentum, the constant drive to advance and evolve. So you see, it's not a one-and-done creation. It's a universe that's always pushing forward, always reaching for something more complex, something more meaningful.
So we've gone from a single comma to the origin of the universe to the very engine that runs the cosmos. And now it all comes back to a single question, a question that brings it all right back to you.
And this is what I want to leave you with. What if you aren't just some random accident that popped out of an empty void? What if instead you are an essential, necessary part of a full and complete being right from the very start? If you really let that sink in, how does that change who you are? How does that change how you see yourself and your place in the world? It's a big question, and it's definitely something worth thinking about.